Yeah.
The way to do that is to look at why you don't feel confident in this moment. And so it's really about asking, like, okay, I don't feel good about myself. Why? It's as simple as that. Why? What am I saying to myself?
Before we start the show, I have a quick question for you. Is your resume stuck in the rejection pile? At Resume Assassin, I create powerful resumes that showcase your skills, experience, and achievements, getting you noticed by recruiters. I'll also optimize your LinkedIn profile, transforming it into a magnet for opportunity. Visit resumeassassin.com today and take charge of your job search. Visit resumeassassin.com. Real talk with real people shaping the world of work and life. This is Resume Assassin Unfiltered. No fluff, just unfiltered stories, insights, and inspiration to fuel your next move. I want to start with something I've been thinking about a lot lately. Early in my career, I often felt like I wasn't enough, not loud enough, not the kind of person who could really command a room. As an introvert, I've always felt the pressure to show up in ways that just truly didn't feel like me. And even now, I sometimes catch myself believing that confidence means just being someone that I'm not. And maybe you felt like that too. Like there's this kind of like invisible rule book that you're supposed to make it in your career. And so you guys, that's why I'm so excited for today's guest, Linda Rayner. Linda is a career strategist, a speaker, and now the author of The Quiet Achiever, a book that's all about helping introverted, high-achieving professionals who feel stuck or stagnant take their next big step without pretending to be something that they're just not. So Linda, welcome to Resume Assassin Unfiltered.
Thank you for having me, Mary. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. Well, awesome. Okay, so Linda, when you think back to your early career, who was Linda then? And how is she different than from who you are now?
This question, it's a big one.
It's a doozy.
Yes, it's a doozy. Okay. So if we were to go back, I would say like 15 years at this point, even a little bit before that, I mean, before I even started my career, I was always this overachiever. I was the nerd in school, always studying, trying to get top grades, top marks, because for me, my desire and idea of success was taught to me by my parents, which said, parents who were refugees, actually, who had always instilled in me, just work hard. Once you work hard, you get the grades, you get the good job, the stable, high-paying job, then you'll be set for life. Live happily ever after. I believed that wholeheartedly because I trusted my parents wholeheartedly. And it was only until I entered the work world, when my first job was at a public accounting firm as an auditor, that I realized, hold on, how come I'm not living the happily ever after I thought I would be? You know, I've gotten this stable career, finally worked so hard to get here, become a CPA, thinking that this was the dream, and it was not my dream. If anything, it was very far from it. I did not enjoy my career at the very beginning, and it made me really have to reflect early on. And I think a lot of people, I think even the younger generations, Gen Z, for example, are really, I mean, it feels as though they're very vocal about that there are careers right now out there that just don't align with what they want to do, or the traditional careers. And I felt that back then. And so I ended up leaving that whole world of accounting. I switched over into being a recruiter. And that was where things shifted for me early on in those years, because I realized I have other skills and talents that I didn't even know I really had until I started working in that type of job where I was helping people to land job offers. I was helping them with their resumes. I was finding good people to poach and bring into other companies. And I became a really good top recruiter at my company, and I got all these awards and achievements, and that started to become my identity. I started associating my value and my worth with what I was doing and the results that I was getting. So as a high achiever, you're a achiever in many ways. The way that we become high achievers is that we learn that external validation and external rewards become part of our identity. So if we aren't able to achieve that, we feel less than. And so this type of job where it was all about, make the placements, find the people.
Yeah.
I was programming myself. It was a sales environment, essentially. I was programming myself to believe that I'm only as good as my next placement. I'm only as good as that next sale, essentially, as people say in the sales world. And I carried that forward into my business. So, like I said, this is a long story, but
No, I love it.
essentially, after being a recruiter for a few years, I realized that, I have so much more to offer. I'm good at
Yeah.
what I'm doing right now with helping people land jobs, but when you're a recruiter, you're meeting dozens and dozens of people a day or seeing their resumes. You're interacting with dozens of people a day. And so there's a lot of people that I had to ignore in the process of helping the hundreds of people that I placed. And those people that I ignored, it wasn't that they weren't good. I mean, it was more about the fact that they didn't know how to articulate their value. They didn't have the confidence to know how to demonstrate to me how good they were for this job. They didn't sell themselves to me. And these were things that I felt you could learn these skills. You could learn how to articulate and communicate better. You could learn how to sell yourself better, but people didn't know how to do that. And so I decided, this is back in 2016. I said, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to put this information out there online. And this was, again, back at a time where it wasn't like everyone and their brother was on YouTube the way that
Yeah.
it is now.
But
There was actually a very small handful of career coaches online, and I became one of them. My channel basically blew up within a few months. I put out one
wow.
video called Tell Me About Yourself, how to answer that interview question. And now it has like 24 million views and it's still one of my
Wow.
top performing videos. Yeah. And it actually took me from a nobody, I mean, nobody that anyone knew, to all of a sudden Linda Rayner, this successful career coach, helping thousands of people through my programs
Yeah.
and my coaching to land job offers and it was a lot of people also landed job offers just by watching my free content too. So, I mean, I was delivering a lot of value and that then became my identity. So this was part of this is that my confidence was based on external things in the sense that if I achieved a certain level of success, then I felt a little bit more confident within myself. But it wasn't, I wouldn't say true, authentic confidence, which is now what I really talk about.
Yeah.
It was conditional on my achievements and my success. And I can continue going on from there. But essentially, that's how my business started. And then
Yeah.
that success has continued, but things have shifted, and we can talk about that in the last few years. So, if you're saying, just to answer your initial question, Mary, where were you
Yeah.
before? Where are you now? I mean, I'm no longer that same Linda Rayner that identified with my external achievements and success,
Mm.
and that was just constantly driven by, I need to do more, I need to be more for everyone else. It is very much now about how do I feel internally every single day? Does this align with who I am and how I feel? And the things that I choose to do, work, career, activities, anything, I always check in with myself and I'm much more grounded and at ease within myself, and being able to express myself comes much more naturally now than it used to, where I felt like I had to be someone else. So
Yeah.
I feel like I've come home to myself in many ways, and we can
Yeah.
talk about that too.
I think that so many people can relate to you on a lot of different levels. I mean, I'm just thinking about my own life, and I left a full-time job to pursue my business, and I can relate to what you said, especially with the recruiting aspect of it, where when you're making these placements, that's so rewarding. It's like you get this huge hit of dopamine. And I'm the same way too. I'm very guilty of this in my own business, where it's like if I bring on a new client and I get a sale, whatever you
Yeah.
call it. I bring on a new client. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm awesome. I feel amazing. I get this huge hit of adrenaline and dopamine. And with any business, you have these ups and downs because business is going to ebb and flow. And then I'm guilty of, one day I'm just riding really high. I'm like, I'm amazing. I'm doing so well. And then, the next week I have a slow week. And then I'm like, this is the worst. I'm terrible. I'm going to have to go find a full-time job. And it's just, attaching so much of my confidence and my mental well-being to how my business is performing. I think that a lot of people will be able to relate to that in their lives in a lot of different ways. And I think that one key thing that you said that stood out to me was this idea of just this kind of radical confidence. So, talk to me a little bit more about that because it sounds like the confidence is something that has really ebbed and flowed and evolved in your own life. So tell us just a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I mean, for me, I would say that growing up, I was not a confident girl at all. And part of it is, I would say, my upbringing, my childhood programming, the culture that I was raised in, and I think a lot of people can relate. I don't want to say all Asian cultures, but there is, I would say that there's, in general, there's a type of upbringing where parents tend to point out weaknesses or areas to improve more so than the things that you're doing good at or things that you're doing well in. For me, it was, there was a lot of criticism. There was a lot of
Yeah.
judgment. There was a lot of you need to do this better or look at that. Why are you doing it like that? And it was always pointing out the negatives within me. And as a child, you don't think that they're trying to help you, which in a weird twisted way that my parents were thinking they were helping me by pointing out
Mhm.
my criticisms, but really
Yeah.
it was making me feel that I wasn't enough, that I wasn't good enough. And so even when I did do things, so it made me actually really hungry for their approval, for their validation, it taught me this way of thinking that I'm only good enough if someone else praises me. I'm only good
Yeah.
enough if people approve of me and validate me and praise me. So the lack of confidence really was from that, was from the criticism and the judgment. And then I started to learn to criticize and judge myself, of course, because that became
Mhm.
my internal voice. And what I've had to learn over it's been a lifelong journey of really for me, I know that my life theme, I think that we all have themes that we all have to go through and each of us is unique in the themes that we've had to work through. But for me, I know my theme has always been about relating to self-doubt.
Yeah.
Actually, I confirmed that actually recently. Someone gave me a human design reading, 20-minute human design reading, and she had said that was like my life theme. So self-doubt and confusion as to who I am, as to what my value is, who I am in this world. And I've really had to work through that. And the way to work through anything, I would say, if you really want to get to a place of authentic confidence, and that's what I really like to call it, is authentic because it's coming from within rather than from external.
Yeah.
The way to do that is to look at why you don't feel confident in this moment. And so it's really about asking, like, okay, I don't feel good about myself. Why? It's as simple as that. Why? What am I
Yeah.
saying to myself? And I talk a lot about this in my book, which is coming out in October called The Quiet Achiever, where I help people work through their deepest, darkest beliefs because I believe fully, and I have a whole story about this too,
Mhm.
but I believe fully that when it comes to uncovering your authentic confidence, you need to first get rid of the junk that's there. It's as if there's a pipe and the pipe is clogged. And if you want to get to you want to be able to have a clear flow, you need to unclog the junk. Then the junk are the
Yeah.
fear-based beliefs that you're holding on to. So it's really about asking, okay, what are you? What are you saying to me? Where did you come from? And then really digging into it. And what I know to be true, because I've done this process over and over and over again when I've hit a roadblock or an obstacle or a challenge, I've seen that as soon as I acknowledge, oh, it's because I believe this about myself. And
Mm.
it's because it came from this time period in my life and I've carried it forward till now. Soon as you acknowledge that, it disappears. It starts to really it's like, okay, thank you. And the analogy I like to give is a crying baby or the metaphor. I don't know. I always get confused with the two, but the idea is like it's like a crying baby. When a baby is crying hysterically, what are you going to do? You're going to go over there, pick up the baby, soothe the baby, give the baby milk, maybe rock the baby, hug the baby, whatever he or she needs, you're going to address their needs. Fear based beliefs, when we're feeling uncomfortable within ourselves, when we're not feeling confident within ourselves, it's due to a fear based belief that is screaming at you, that is crying for your attention, that needs to be looked at. And so, as long as you pay attention to it and look at it and say, oh, I see you now. This is why you're making me feel uncomfortable. Okay. And then you can choose on whether you want to continue to hold on to that belief, or you can choose to say, you know what, I acknowledge you. Thank you. You're giving me information about myself about things that I've been carrying. And I now choose I choose to no longer hold on to you. And then you let it go and you see what happens within 24 hours. I've seen this for myself and with other people. It just they shift. They literally feel lighter. They'll say it to me. Those, "Oh my gosh, I feel so much lighter now." And within a matter of hours. And you do that little by little by little with every block that you come across, you will start to feel more at ease within yourself. And that is what I believe authentic confidence is feeling comfortable in your own body and then being able to express your natural authentic self.
Wow. Amen. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Could you share, I guess, more of a personal story where
Yeah.
self-belief did kind of make all that difference for you?
Yes. Okay. So this is a big one. I actually recently on my YouTube channel, very recently, yesterday actually, posted my big life update video and why I've been quiet because for the last few years I have been in hiding. So this podcast, I feel like this interview is perfect timing for me to be able
Yes,
to
amazing.
continue the conversation. Yes. So I'm
I
very
love it.
thankful, Mary, for you inviting me on. But essentially, you know, my life, when I talked about me being a recruiter, then starting my career coaching business and it being very successful, I identified with that success
Yeah.
for a long time. And then what happened was COVID, 2020, I got pregnant and I had my two boys back to back. The second was a surprise. So it was they were very close together. And, you know, blessings, of course, but at the
Mhm.
same time, huge identity crisis for me where
Yeah.
I was saying, "Oh my gosh, I'm a stay-at-home mom now. I have to take care of 2 under 2. They're both in diapers. They're both crying for me." This is so far from the lifestyle I was living before where we had a vacation home in Hawaii, which we still had at the time, but we were traveling, we were eating
Mm.
out nice fancy dinners. I mean, just my husband and I. And so I was now like at home with my hair in a bun, just trying to take care of my kids and trying to survive. And at the
Mhm.
same time, though, I wanted that. I had planned for that. I said that if once I have kids, I want to be at home for them for the first few years. And so I'm very grateful that I was able to do that. But it also meant I didn't realize it would mean an unraveling of who I thought I was.
Mm.
Because going from successful
Yeah.
career woman to then stay at home mom, you know, and I'm not discounting stay at home moms. I mean, it is hard work. And I
Yeah.
actually, I would much rather choose to just do the work that I do because I do feel it's a little bit easier than being a stay at home mom. But, you know, to each their own. I was going through this identity crisis. And then something even bigger happened where at the end of so 2021, 2022 is when I had my kids. The end of 2020, 2021 was when I had my kids. Then at the end, right before Christmas, the week before Christmas, my husband had been experiencing some pain in his body. And so he'd been going up for checkups. So he had gone for checkups. He was rushed to get some specialized exams done. And at the week before Christmas, we found out that he was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer.
My goodness.
Yes, stage 4. And this type of cancer in particular was one where if you went online onto Google, you would find that percent, I mean, whatever the statistic is, basically almost everyone that gets stage 4 cancer of this type of cancer, they do not make it past the first year. You know, first year, 1 year is optimistic, actually. Usually it's within months. And so the doctor, I remember so it was Christmas that we got this news. Obviously, we were
Jeez.
we didn't know what to think. I was numb for a few days. We then went in January to the first meeting with the oncologist. And I remember that we still hadn't done a lot of research. We didn't look into it very much. We just wanted to just try to enjoy our holidays as much as we could without over worrying. But in that first meeting, I remember the oncologist walking into the room with tears in her eyes because she had read our file and she had seen that we were both, you know, early 30s, early to mid
Mhm.
30s with 2 young kids at home. They even wrote that in the file that we had 2 under 2. And clearly he was in his prime. He was actually a director at a big bank here in Canada, and he was on the
Wow.
fast track to executive level. And she said, "I am so sorry. I am so sorry that you're going through this." And you could tell that she genuinely meant it. But the level of, I mean, the depth of her words hit me because it made me feel as though, wait, hold on. I know I don't know a lot, but why are you making it sound so gloomy?
Yeah.
And as the conversation went on, we could sense that she didn't necessarily feel super positive about it. And I think all doctors, they have to be conservative in a way, so they try to stay level headed or balanced. But really, like, you could hear it in her voice and in the things
Yeah.
that she was sharing that it was going to inevitably lead to a certain result. She shared what she needed to share, and she let us sit there for a bit, 15 minutes. She walked out of the room to just give us some time to decompress and take in all the information about what was going on and what his protocol would be. And I remember sitting there in that moment, and I turned over to my husband. I saw and I heard him. He let out a huge sigh, and his face he just looks so deflated,
Mhm.
clearly, because now he's learned that this is not going to be good. In that moment, something came over me. And I've had these moments in my life before where something just takes over, where a strong knowing just takes over, and it just comes through. So I had one of those moments where I turned to him and I said, "Okay, listen, you have a choice." This knowing that he had a choice came through. I just felt it. I could hear it even. So that's a whole other thing. I could talk about my intuition, but I could hear it. It's like he has a choice. So I said, "You have a choice. You have a choice as to whether you want to continue following on this path that the doctors have been telling us and the direction that they're thinking this is going to go, or you can choose to stay. You can choose to heal. You can choose to understand and get to the root of what this has caused this," which in my mind, I always know, in my heart and soul, I know that anything that is physical starts with energy first. Energy
100%.
first, then it becomes physical. So I knew that if we just healed at the energy level, if we actually got to the root of it, which involves emotions and beliefs, because that is what energy is everything, but emotions and beliefs, the invisible. I said, as long as we can understand what the root of this is, we can heal this. You can heal this. I just know it's possible. And then I said a few other things, and I can't remember what I said, but I know that it was all kind of channeled through me. I said those words to him, and I could see all of a sudden his body language, his demeanor, all of a sudden he sort of woke right up, and he was like, "Yeah, you're right. Okay." And so the both of us, by the time that the doctor walked back in, we had these rose-colored glasses on, where we were convinced from that point onward, no, he's going to be okay. He's going to be fine because he has a choice. He can choose. And so now he's chosen that he's going to stay and he's going to heal and that he's not going anywhere. And fast forward a little bit, 3 months later, he ends up in the hospital for a separate issue. But in that experience, we discovered that the tumor that he had that was growing and that was angry, according to the initial doctor, had completely disappeared.
Wow.
And they did a few scans after that, just a few months after that, and the doctors have said, "We can't explain it, but his body or your body looks like one that's never had cancer." And so within 6 months, we were living a normal life. We were going to our friends' cottages, we were having a great summer with our kids, we were enjoying life, just eating out, doing all the things that we would have normally done had the cancer never even come. Like, we were just living our normal life, but with this new perspective. And for
Wow.
me, this experience has confirmed I have a full knowing now and full understanding that our beliefs are the root of everything.
Mm.
Our energy is powerful, and we have the ability to choose our beliefs. We have the ability to direct our energy. And therefore, that means that we can heal ourselves, we can transform ourselves, we can shift from one version of ourselves to another if we choose to. If we choose, and I make it sound so simple. It's not necessarily super simple because there's a lot of unlearning that has to go into it. So that's why addressing the fear-based beliefs, the gunk, you need to clear that out first if you want the real authentic energy to come through. It's not like, oh, let's just hold on to the old stuff and try to manifest the new stuff. You really need to do the work. You need to address the fears and the pains. And so he did that those 3 months because, I mean, I can get into full detail about that, but it really was about I would say I coached him through the process because, he in a physical state, he was in so much pain. He was just sitting on the couch, not just, but in a sense that he was forced to I always think that it was a forced meditation. He had to sit there to really reflect on what matters to
Mm.
him and also who is he going to show up now as next, because the source of I believe the source of the cancer for him in his situation had a lot to do with him putting himself last in his life. We went back in time and we looked at when did this begin, and it had a lot to do with his upbringing where he was taught that if other people are happy, then I'm happy. I have to make others happy before I can make myself happy. And so him putting himself second, third, 10th in line, I believe was this root of all of this because he was not
Wow.
putting himself first. And so he's learned from this experience to shift his mindset in that way and express
Yeah.
himself more. And I genuinely believe that it's just once you acknowledge the root, the energy shifts. It's just like a car that is stuck in the mud. Once you put a stick or whatever you need to do to really get it off that little bit of that ditch, then it drives off. It's clear, it's done, you move forward. It's the same idea here with beliefs. You just have to find the right angle to get at it and really get to the root of it, and then it'll shift you and
Yeah.
you'll shift your beliefs and everything. Yeah.
So I'm at a loss for words. Story is just so incredibly powerful. I agree with you 1000% that your energy, your thoughts, with that mental clarity, the things that you put into your own life, those are the things that will come to fruition. So, for those that are listening to our conversation today, what are some steps that they could take today, or what are some things that they could do to start to send some of that positive energy into their own lives to make great things happen in their own lives? They may not be struggling with stage 4 cancer or have a loved one that is in this really extreme situation, but they may be at a place in their life where they're at this job that they absolutely hate, or they're stuck at home, not stuck at home, but maybe they're a stay-at-home parent, and their husband is working or their wife is working, but they're struggling to make ends meet and they don't see any way out of it. What's something that they could do today to kind of shift that mental energy and really make something happen for themselves in a positive way?
Yeah. So I would say you the approach is almost like you leap forward, then you work backwards. And what I mean by that is leaping forward as in our ability to see what's possible is so powerful that we take it for granted, but and oftentimes we don't even use that ability that we have. And when I say see what's possible, it really is about imagining what could my ideal life look like? What could my ideal career look like? What could my ideal lifestyle look like? Really giving yourself the opportunity to imagine and maybe write it down, record it, voice record it, however it is. Give yourself that time and space to visualize, to envision, to fuel yourself up with this possibility that this life exists. And that was what we did. It was about, okay, there is a life, a timeline essentially where you are healthy, you are living and thriving and loving life. And that's what we're going to choose. So knowing that that is a choice. Then when I say working backwards, what I mean is you've leapt forward, you see that this is possible for you. Now it's about, okay, what does it take to get there? And it's a mix of unlearning and addressing the
Mhm.
internal fear-based beliefs that are going to come up, because absolutely when you're thinking, I want this type of life, I want this amazing lifestyle, I want my day to be like this, there's always going to be resistance in that. It's not possible for me. Oh, okay. Well, then that's the first thing we need to address. Why do you believe that it's not possible for you? Where is that coming from? Who told you that? Who's made you believe that you aren't capable? We need to get to the root and unravel. And I call fear based beliefs almost like chains around our arms, our legs that are holding us back and keeping us tethered in the reality, in the lifestyle, in the career that we don't want to be in anymore. But until we're able to unravel them, we won't be able to move forward. And so it really is about getting to that level of understanding yourself and how you are talking to yourself, what you are saying to yourself, the beliefs that you are carrying. So when you do that step by step, you also then simultaneously will get inklings. You allow yourself the time and space to hear from your intuition, from your inner guidance as to, okay, if I want that lifestyle, what would be the first step for me to take to inch a little bit forward? And as an example for me, I remember back when I was working in the corporate world as a recruiter, I knew that I eventually wanted to start my own business. I knew I wanted to work for myself. I knew I wanted to work my own hours. And so I got this inkling that, well, the way to, for me, I feel I could express myself well in my business would be to put myself on video and maybe throw some videos on YouTube and see
Hmm.
what happens there. And so it was a natural inkling that came from me allowing myself to envision what was possible. And that is the same that I would say for anyone that's watching or listening is for you to identify, okay, what is that ideal? Then listen to your inner guidance. Your inner guidance is going to give you clues. You're going to get hunches as to, okay, if you do this, this might actually lead you one step closer. And yes, the resistance is going to come up. The fears are going to come up. I mean, I was terrified putting up videos. I still am sometimes, and especially the one that I put up yesterday. But at the same time, you got to be able to address them. You need to look at them and say, okay, is this real? Or is this based on an old pattern, an old belief, something that I'm telling myself? What do I need? I need to see clear. I need to see clearly if I'm going to be able to move forward. So I need to be able to get rid of the gunk and address it and then continue to take the action steps. So it's a simultaneous process of doing the inner work, but also taking the outer action steps.
Wow. So I'm also curious, what inspired you to write The Quiet Achiever, and really how much of your own story is woven into it?
Yes. Thank you for asking that
Mhm.
because this book, I'll tell you, there's a little backstory as to how it came about.
Yeah.
So it was about, I can't remember, it was 6 or 8 months, some along that timeline after my husband was diagnosed, where we were, like I said, living a normal life. Within 6 to 8 months, we were living a normal life.
Mm.
We had even reflected at one point in that summer, being like, wow, we're just like going to the cottage, we're just like doing things. It was incredible. But I had a dream one night. It was early morning, actually. It was about 5 in the morning. I remember I had a vivid, vivid dream where it was as if my eyes were open, but my eyes were closed because I know I was asleep. But I was looking up at the top of my ceiling right above my bed. So that's why it felt like my eyes were open, but they weren't. It was in my dream. And I saw what looked like my journal. I have a journal that has a lot of nice design on it. It looked just like my journal, but on the front, it had words printed on it that said, "Express your inner confidence" by Linda Rayner. And it was twirling, like in movies where it's like the holy grail, like it's like, oh, like that
Yeah,
kind of feeling.
totally.
It was
Yeah.
like twirling and it was glowing. And I
Wow.
remember
So
I
vivid.
woke up very vivid because I woke up and I was
Yeah.
like, I saw that. I still can see that. Even right now, as I'm talking about it, I could still see it. And I said, okay, that was so clear. Maybe it's time, because I've always known that one day I would write a book, but I did not expect that it would be at that point in my life that I would be having to write a book. But I always knew it would book in me. And I think a lot of people sometimes they say that there's a book in them. And I just always knew. And so I said, I'm going to take that as a sign and I'm going to look into the process of what it takes to become an author. So for the next couple of months, this was about the fall of 2023, I started diving deep into research, understanding
Mm.
what's the process of getting a publisher and an agent, and all these things. And I realized, oh my gosh, it's like a lengthy process and it's not easy. And I also had some ideas. I'd come up with an idea as part of my research. I started coming up with ideas as to what I could potentially write about, but I wasn't really fully feeling it, and I wasn't really sure if it was gonna if it was possible. I kind of decided, we're hitting the holidays. So again, this was 1 year after my husband was diagnosed at this point, that I said, okay, I'll put it on the back burner and I'll just wait till maybe next year and I'll start writing and figuring it out. The week before Christmas, so exactly the same week, 1 year after my husband was diagnosed, I get an email from Wiley, which is a pretty big publisher.
Mhm.
They emailed me and they said to me, "Oh, Linda, would you like to, we'd love to talk about partnering with you." And I thought, did I put my email when I was doing all my book research? Did I like put my email to some spam thing and now they're like pretending to be Wiley? And so I really had no idea. I actually thought it was a scam. And so I was
Yeah.
like, okay, sure. Yeah, I'll meet with you. And it turns out it was the editor there, and she had found my YouTube. She had found me online, and
Wow.
she point blank asked me, "Linda, have you ever thought about writing a book? Because if you have,
Yes.
we'd love to publish it." Yeah, it's
Wow. Oh my
like, I was like,
gosh.
as soon as I heard that, I was like, no wonder this makes total sense. I had that dream, then I did all this research, and that was needed because what ended up happening was she sent me a form. Of course, I said yes and all this, and she sent me a form. She's like, I would love for you to just fill this out and just let me know if you have any ideas on what you would like to write about. And I tell you, within 24 hours, I gave her a full on detailed book proposal as
Wow.
to what I would wanna write about, and I would have not been able to produce that had I not done the 3 months of in-depth research. So I feel like I was being prepared for that opportunity. Because if I had nothing to say, I would have probably missed out on that opportunity, that book opportunity. And in the end, I ended up changing the topic to what it is now, which is your journey
Mhm.
to authentic confidence. Back then, it was going to be about helping professionals get promoted in their jobs.
Sure.
I thought and then I realized that's not my legacy, that's not what I wanna talk about, and,
Yeah.
that's how the book was born. But through the process of writing the book, I can tell you there was a lot of unlearning and really digging deep. And that's how I've come to really solidify and hone in on my knowledge and understanding of beliefs and how they play into our everyday lives, how they play into how we show up in the world, how we speak, how we communicate, how we interact with others. I mean, I've always been someone who has struggled with feeling comfortable in my own skin. And it's been through these last few years of really getting to the root of why that is and unlearning them that I now feel so much more comfortable within myself. And that is what I hope to share with the world is it's for those high achievers who feel stuck, stagnant in their careers, in their lives, and they're realizing there's more to life than just making money, than just climbing the corporate ladder. I think the world of work is changing so much now that we really need this message. People need to know that you have everything within you to create the life, the career, the work, to do whatever it is that your heart desires. You have the ability to. You have all the opportunities available to you, but you need to unlearn the conditioning, the fears that you carry in order and release them in order to then hear what your heart wants you to do. And so that's the premise of the book.
Wow. So where can we pre-order your book? So tell us about where we can pre-order it and where can we find you on social media?
Yes, absolutely. On social media, I mean, you can find me, yeah, I mean, all over. I would say I'm on YouTube, Instagram. YouTube is my main platform. I have close to 1 million subscribers there. But I also, for the book, it's on my website. So it's lindarayner.com/book. And actually, what I'm doing right now as a promotion for the pre-order is I'm giving away $1,000 worth of bonuses if you
Wow.
pre-order my $28 book.
Yes.
And that includes my best-selling course, Top Notch Interview, which has helped thousands of people land job offers. So I'm giving that to you for free as long as you pre-order. And so all the information is on my website, again, lindarayner.com/book, if you do that before October 14th, because that's when the book officially launches and comes out.
Awesome, Linda. Well, it was such a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Mary, and for
Of
letting me
course.
share my story. I hope it inspires your audience.
I know it will. Thanks for listening. I will be releasing episodes every Monday, so be sure to subscribe on the platform that you are watching this. Give it a 5-star review, and we'll see you next time.